By the end of this video, you'll know how to tune your cars to drift just like this. Time to tune today. All right, y'all know I've been playing a lot of Forza Horizon 6 and I've been getting a lot of people asking about my tunes and asking a lot of questions on how I get them to feel the way they do. So this is that video. So before we get started, let me make something very clear. This is not the correct way to tune drift cars. That's not what this is, because there is no single correct way to tune drift cars. Some people want to get high scores. Some people want to get max angle. Some people want to get max speed. It's really all about what you want. And none of those are really me. This video, I'm gonna show you how I like to tune my drift cars to be smooth, predictable, and ready to grab doors the sauce way. Let's get into the video. All right, before we even touch the tuning, I'm gonna be real. A lot of y'all ruin y'all cars in the build process. Tuning ain't gonna fix a bad build. It's just gonna expose it faster. So we need to start with the build before we get to the tune. Now, this is something I see a lot of people getting wrong. First thing they do is they go into this engine menu and they start upgrading their menu, or they start upgrading their engine. For me, I do the opposite, and here's why. If you start with the engine first and later decide that you want to swap it, everything that you did to your engine is going to get reset. So the first thing I do is I come and look at the engines and make sure that my engine that I'm currently using is a good engine for drifting. One good way to see that is if you look at this graph down here, you'll see those two lines. You want those two lines to be as smooth and as linear as possible. You don't want to see any crazy spikes like this one. You can see from right here, from 3,000 to 4,000 RPMs, there's a crazy spike. As you start upgrading your engine, that spike is only going to get worse. But that spike makes drifting not smooth. That's not what we want. See, like this right here has a huge spike. That's going to make your drifting not smooth. You want something that's close to this. You see that red line move almost going straight across, and that yellow line is very evenly going up. That means your power is going to be spread out across your entire RPM range in your car. So when you have this spike, when you're on low RPMs, you have very low power being given to the car, given low wheel spin. And then as soon as you hit 4,000 RPMs, the wheels are going to start spinning super fast, because now all of a sudden the car is getting so much more power. That's not what we want. We want the car engine to be as smooth as possible. Looking at the stock engine, it looks fairly smooth. It's not a perfectly straight line, but that spike is not drastic enough that it's going to be super noticeable. So we're going to stick with the stock engine. Obviously, we got a rear wheel drive, swap it. We are using the new 4-door R33. Yeah, I don't know. 4-door. I didn't even know this thing existed before it dropped in this game. But yeah, we're going to see if this thing slides. All right, moving on over to aero and appearance. Oh, I like this bumper. This bumper look nice. We're gonna throw this front bumper on. Look like that's really all we got, because I'm not putting a wing on here. No wing, no wing. Now this part right here is very important. I almost never use drift tires in this game. Now I know if you're a new person coming to this game, me included, I built most of my first cars on drift tires. You think I'm building a drift car, I want drift tires, but those are more for extreme high horsepower Formula drift style cars that need a lot more grip in order for power to make sense. For the type of drift cars that we want to build, getting tandems, going slower, smoother, we don't want drift tires. We want either snow tires, stock tires, or street tires. Snow tires being my favorite. They feel smooth. It's almost like drifting on glass. Probably not the most realistic, but the smoothest and looks the best in my opinion. Perfect for flowing tandems. Stock tires give a nice balance of grip and controls. Also not too fast. They're a little bit faster than snow tires, but also very, very smooth. And then street tires are just a little bit more responsive than the other two and a little bit faster, but also still very smooth. Probably use street tires on cars that have slightly more horsepower than usual. Drift tires are way too aggressive for my style. We're not going to use those. Let's put on some snow tires. Snow tires my favorite. Look at the tire width. We don't want the tire width to be too wide, as that's going to make us drift a lot faster, and it's going to give us a lot more grip. Both we don't want. So we don't want the tire width too wide. 245 is not bad. What is it in the rear? 245 as well. We'll probably keep it at 245. Our front track width, you're going to want to usually max this out. For drift cars, you want this maxed out. The rear, you can also max it out if you want, but for me, I personally like it. I like having it just slightly less wide than the front. This gives you a little bit more stability when you're drifting. That's it for tires. Then we're going to go on over to the drivetrain. Transmission, we're going to go straight to the 6-speed. Just notice there's no clutch. Race drive line, and then we're going to put in the drift differential. Brakes, we're going to always do race brakes. This is what allows us to actually adjust the brakes in the tuning menu. Suspension, we're going to do drift suspension. We're going to do both front and rear anti-roll bars. Those are very important for drifting. And then when it comes to weight reduction, this one is very important. As you see, I hit the toggle button at the bottom. You see the car weighs about 3,252 pounds. When I tune my cars, I don't chase horsepower. I don't chase weight even. I go off a power to weight ratio. So my target for power to weight ratio is 0.15 to 0.20 horsepower. That's this right here, power. Right now we're at 0.08 horsepower per pound. We want it to be at 0.15 to 0.20 horsepower per pound. But we also want our car to feel a little heavy. This might surprise people, but I don't usually do weight reduction. If I do, I might do the street weight reduction, but I usually don't go much further than that. I like my cars to be between 3,000 and 3,400 pounds. That's what feels best to me. Weight is really important in this game when it comes to drifting and when it comes to making your drifts feel smooth and your car not feeling super twitchy. Weight is one of the most critical factors when it comes to your build. It smoothens everything out. So because we're sitting at about 3,252 pounds, I'm actually not going to touch the weight at all. We're going to leave it fat and heavy. And we're just going to bring up that power. Like we said, we're going to make sure our power band, our power ratio hit 0.15 to 0.20. 0.15 being on the lower end and 0.20 being a little bit more on the more powerful end. For flywheel, we're always going to get the race flywheel. This is what allows your car to raise RPMs super fast. It also makes your RPMs go down super fast. So this gives you more control over your RPMs, as opposed to if you have the stock, your RPMs would go up slowly as you're on the gas. You don't have to worry about that with the race flywheel. The RPMs just shoot right up. I always start with the flywheel camshaft. This gives you, as you can see, our RPMs right here stop at about 8,000. This makes our RPMs go to about 8,500. This makes our RPMs go to about 8,800. And then this makes our RPMs go to about 9,500, almost 10,000 RPMs. I'm going to go with sport cams and go with about 8,800 RPMs. Sometimes you don't want it too high. Higher is not always better, but that's something that you can test out per car. Right now we're at 366 horsepower. As you see, our power is going up. Now we're at 0.11 horsepower per pound. So we still got some room to work with. 0.13. So get the exhaust. Usually when it comes to exhaust, get whatever sounds best to you. That's what I do. I actually like this aggressive sound with the backfire, so we're gonna go with that. So after you do that, I'm gonna tell you now, never ever put a turbo on your car. I know some people like to put turbos on their car. This is really bad. Let me show you why. Remember that spike that we were talking about, how this goes up and then you see how it evens out and now it's actually going down. Very odd spike. When you add a turbo to it, you just make that spike so much worse. So now when you're on low RPMs, you get low power, then it spikes up here, it shoots up, and then once you get past 2,500 RPMs, it goes even higher, and then it starts to drop down. You don't really want that on your power graph, so don't put the turbo on. You don't want that on there. Never put a turbo unless it's a supercharger. Superchargers give you your power much more evenly throughout your RPM, so you can use a supercharger. Don't use a twin turbo or even a single turbo. What is our power at? We're at 0.17 horsepower per pound. So we could stay right about here, which I actually think we will. We're at 537 horsepower. So we'll start off here and we'll see how it feels. Now, usually what I would do is I would go, before I put even a base tune on the car, I would go and test drive the car and see how it feels, just so I can get a better understanding of what the car actually needs. But for video's sake, we're going to skip that. We're going to go straight to the base tune. This is my foundation setup that I use on just about every single car. It's not perfect. It's not final. It just makes every car feel pretty familiar, and I know where to go from there. So starting off with the differential, I fully max out the differential 100 for drifting. This is the best differential settings you can have. Some people like to lower the decel, and that does make it slightly easier, but that does also make it not as smooth. What this does, regardless of how much power is being given to the wheels, both tires will spin at the exact same speed. This means when I'm on acceleration, since it's on 100%, when I hit the gas, both tires will spin at the exact same time together. The exact same thing matters for deceleration. So when I let off the gas, both tires will slow down at the exact same speed, as opposed to one tire slowing down faster than the other, which helps you get more grip. Now, if I was to lower this down to, let's say, 0% on decel, that means as soon as I get off the gas, both of my tires will immediately stop working together and they'll work separately to make the car grip up. When we're getting tandems, that's not what we want. We want our car to be as smooth as possible. So we want a fully locked differential, non-negotiable. For our brake balance, this is also very important. It's how you're going to be able to get right up on people's doors when you're getting tandems. I like to run 85% front, 40% braking force. Some people like to run this a lot lower. If you feel like the brakes are too strong, lower this to about 30, 25, 20 until you find the right sweet spot for you. For me, 40 is perfect. So I put this on just about every single car. I actually put it to about 88%. That helps me get more angle. Aero, I just about never touch it ever, like ever. Let's come back to damping. Let's go to tires. The tire pressure, this one's going to look a little weird for some of you guys, but I always start my base tunes off max PSI. Yes, I know it looks weird, but trust me, this is how I do every single tune. That's why it feels as smooth as it is. What this PSI pretty much is going to do, this is going to help you pretty much adjust the grip level that your car has. It's going to adjust your drifting speed, how fast your car is when it's sliding. And it's also going to adjust how much contact patch you have with the tires on the ground, meaning how much of the actual tire is actually touching the ground and how much of the tire is not. The harder the tire, the less tires on the ground, which means the faster you go. Gearing, we're not really going to be able to do much of gearing without driving it, but we can shorten the gears just as a base, and then we'll see how that feels once we test drive the car. All right, for alignment is pretty tricky, but it's actually pretty simple if you use my base tune. So for my base tune, I like to start with -5 in the front, maxed out. I go to -2 in the rear. This pretty much slows my drift down a little bit. For tandems, you want your car to be a little bit slower, so more negative camber in the rear makes it slower. Closer you are to 0, the faster your car is. So negative camber means less of your tires actually on the ground, so less speed. For front toe, I always start with 0.5 in the front and -0.7 in the rear, and I use this as a base, and then I would adjust it in game. ARB is extremely important, like extremely important. The game starts you off with some crazy stiff ARBs, anti-roll bars. That's not what we want. We want our anti-roll bars to be very soft. So we'll probably go with like 6 and like 5, or we'll probably go like 5 and 5, or we'll go 5, 6. I like to have the rear just a tiny bit stiffer. Springs, they give you some pretty generic spring settings. We want these to be very soft, very soft. So let's go to around, I like to go to around as low as it can go, but sometimes I'll go to around like 350 as like a base. And I like to put this around like 65 to 75 higher, more stiff in the rear. This is another one that's very different on how I do my tunes based on how I see a lot of other people doing their tunes. I like my ride height to be very close to the same height. And if not, the front higher than the rear. Sometimes I like to put the front higher than the rear if there's a lot of weight in the front. Then I want to move some of that weight to the rear by raising the front and putting the weight on the back. But if there's not too much weight in the front, then I just want to raise the front end a little bit, and let's get it a little closer to an even ride height. Damping, this one is kind of tricky. All right, dampers are where a lot of people get very confused because they try to treat them like springs or anti-roll bars, but that's not what they are. Dampers don't control how much the car moves like your springs do or like your anti-roll bars do. What the dampers control is how fast it moves. So sometimes when you got your weight transferring from the front to the rear, sometimes you don't want it to be too fast, or you might want to slow it down. The dampers are going to control how fast that weight is transferring. So when I'm tuning my dampers, I'm not thinking, does this car feel stiff or soft? That's not what this is. Even though it says stiff and soft, that's not what this is. That would be your springs and your anti-roll bars when you're talking about how stiff and how soft the car feels. What your damping is really doing is how fast that weight is transferring. And when you're drifting, that speed and weight transfer is very important. Perfect example, me personally, I don't want a super extreme amount of weight transfer. So I try to keep my dampers fairly soft, with the rebound being slightly stiffer than the bump. And another rule of thumb I'll teach you, the very easy way to do dampers is try to keep your bump stiffness, whatever you find works good for your rebound stiffness. Try to keep your bump stiffness at around 50 to 75% of what the rebound is. Perfect example, if I put this at 10, then I would want this to be anywhere from 5.0 to 7.5. That's 50 to 75% stiffness of the rebound. And for you guys that don't know how to tune this, I just use this information right here. So it's rebound stiffness. Tuning your car's damping improves handling, blah, blah. If you go down to usually the last 2 sentences will tell you exactly what happens when you raise or lower. So it says right here, increasing front rebound damping stiffness can increase transitional understeer. So in the transition, if you want your car to understeer slightly more because it's slightly oversteering too much, it says increasing front rebound damping stiffness can increase transitional understeer. So our car's oversteering, we can increase this a little bit. And then because we increase this, we would slightly increase this to stay within that 50 to 75% range. So to be honest with you, when it comes to tuning dampers, I'm mostly tuning rebound, and then I'm matching my bump stiffness to match the rebound. That's the most simplest way I can put it. It obviously is a lot more complicated than that, but for someone that doesn't really understand tuning, that is the most simplest way for you to do your dampers. Is use this to get your transitions to feel right. Your transition is oversteering too much, or your transition is a little too fast, or your transition is understeering. You will use these, as it says right here for the rear. Increasing rear rebound damping stiffness can increase transitional understeer. Decreasing rear rebound damping stiffness can increase transitional understeer. So only rule of thumb I use is keep the rear a lot softer than the front. Keep the rear a lot softer because you want the rear to be able to catch that weight so the tires can spin. But just tweak this until your transition feels right. It's honestly that simple, guys. So we're going to start with this as a base. We'll probably lower this a little bit more. Keep this as our base, and then let's go see what the car feels like. All right, now remember, we only put on a base tune. So we don't know how the car is going to feel, how the car is going to react in a lot of these situations. So instead of just driving the car and just blindly driving it around, what I'm going to do as I'm driving is in my head, I'm going to try to predict what I think the car is going to do. I will say already, just off of those first 2 turns, the car feels very smooth, but a little too responsive on the front. Front tires have a little bit too much control of the car right now, and I would rather that control be given to the rear tire so I can control it with the throttle as opposed to controlling it with the wheel. But as you can see, it's already a very, very, very stable build. A little too much in the transition. I feel like the transition is a little too fast. Look at this, it's very smooth. Another thing I have to tell you guys as well is don't try to tune every single car to feel like each other. I notice a lot of people, they'll have a car that they really, really like, and they'll say, oh, I want to tune this car to feel like this car. That's just not realistic. All cars are not the same. You should be trying to tune for a good drift car that fits your style, but it doesn't have to feel like your favorite drift car that you made. All cars are not going to feel the same. So you have to understand that all cars will not feel the same. Just because you put the same tune and the same upgrades on a car doesn't mean that they're going to feel the same. After doing one full lap, I will say I already like this tune a lot. There's not a lot that I'll have to do to it, aside from just slowing down that transition just a little bit. Transition is actually not bad. It just feels a little too twitchy, so I think I'm gonna turn down the toe in the front, make it slightly less responsive, and then it should be good. Honestly, this tune doesn't even really need much. As you can see, I'm drifting that corner at around 35 miles an hour. Let's say I felt like that speed was too fast, and the guys I'm tandeming with are drifting that corner at around 25 miles an hour. All you would have to do, let's say I wanted to slow down just a little bit because I'm going just a little bit too fast. You could lower down this tire pressure just a little bit, do something like 50, and then you go to your alignment and you will add a little bit more rear camber in the back like this. Add a little bit more rear camber in the back like this, and that should slow you down. But because I like where the speed is at, I'm actually not going to do that. The speed feels really good. What I do want to do is turn this toe down a little bit. And let's see if that makes the car feel any less responsive. Let me explain that to you guys that don't know. When you're doing your alignment and stuff, the explanation right here usually tells you just about everything you need to know. So as you can see right here, it says toe in brings the fronts of the tires closer together than the backs. This can increase stability at the cost of turn in response. So remember, I said the car's turn in, when I turn it, it's a little too responsive. So that means I want to turn that toe out down a little bit, because they said if you put toe in, it'll increase stability at the cost of turn in response. So I want less turn in response. So I'm going to turn it down a little bit, and then let's see what happens. It feels much better. It's not snappy. As you can see, look, I'm steering the wheel. Car is not snappy. I can move it and it's not reacting immediately, making the car want to go crazy. I can make smaller, look at the wheel. I can make adjustments and it's fine. Now, if we turn it back up, I want you to notice the difference. This is how I learned how to tune on this game, by the way. I just went in here and I was just tweaking stuff. So we turn this up to a crazy number just so we can get an exaggerated feeling on what it does. I want you to watch what it does now when I'm mid drift. Look at how much more responsive it is now. Look how much the car moves when I'm spinning out. When I move this wheel, look at how much the car actually responds to what I'm doing now. If I go turn it left, the car goes left. If I turn it right, the car goes right. We don't want it to respond that much. We want those front tires to just glide across the ground at the top. We want it to just glide across. If we turn this down, so let's turn it down to close to 0 so we can exaggerate it a little bit more. And now watch the difference. Mid drift, when I turn that wheel, look, it's not nearly as responsive. You see that? I'm able to fully wiggle this wheel. I'm able to fully wiggle this wheel right now. It's hard to do this and drift at the same time, but you can see the car becomes so much less responsive. Now it's a little, that will make my transitions a little too slow. So we're going to keep it where it's at. I haven't even touched the gears yet because they actually feel really good where they are, but I'm going to show you how to tweak the gears as well. As you can see, this car is so stable, smooth, able to hold high angle. Probably make third just a little bit longer. But yeah, guys, that's how I build my drift cars. It's actually pretty simple once you understand the logic behind it. Let's get to these gears real quick. So third did feel really good. So what I would do is I would make third just a little bit longer, maybe 165. I would make second longer. So pretty much I like to use second for my really short drifts, third for pretty much my everything drift, and fourth is my really long drift. Third is the main gear that I'm going to be using. Fourth, not so much. Second, not really so much. So I really like to have second, third, and fourth fairly close to each other. And then all the other gears are not really that important. So I would go around here with second, and then I would bring fourth down to be closer here. I bring fifth down just a little bit. I don't really use fifth for drifting, but I like to keep the gears somewhat even. It just was better in my head. And then I'll try this right here and let's see. So the first test I like to do is I go into my main drifting gear, which is third. I go from a complete stop at 0. I hold the clutch, hold the gas, and the tires should spin with no problem, which they do. So third gear is perfect. Third gear is perfect. Because fourth gear is for my longer drifts, the tires don't need to spin as well. They do need to spin, but they don't need to spin problem free like third gear. So let's try fourth gear, and they spin no problem. So that's perfect. These gears will be perfect already where they're at. So fourth would be for my longer corners, long sweeping corners like mountain style drifting. Third would be just about everything that we do. This would be our main gear that we use for drifting right here. It's almost, like I said, almost perfect where it is. And then second gear would be for short stuff like this. Very short, like hairpin style corners like this is perfect for second gear. So yeah, third for stuff like this, and then second for stuff like this. I'll probably make second just a tad bit longer, just a tiny bit longer. Now remember, guys, this is not a how to tune correctly guide. This is how I like to tune my drift cars for my driving style. If you want your cars to feel similar to mine, then just do what I did in this video and you should be good to go. Leave a comment down below and let me know what you guys like to do differently in your tune. If you've seen that I did something that you like to do different, let me know down in the comments. I'm always trying to learn more about this tuning stuff. So if you notice I did something that you would have done differently, let me know in the comments. All right, now we're going to take it to a drift zone and see if we can 3-star this drift zone. Let's go. Let's see if we can 3-star this drift zone first try. Let's go. As I'm doing this, keep in mind this is not a Toge tune. This is not a Toge tune at all. This is a tune for tandems. If I was making a Toge tune, there is some things that I would do slightly different. But because it's so smooth, you will be able to easily hit the Toge mountains with this tune. And you should be able to 3-star it no problem with these tunes. Oh. Could go a little bit more aggressive and try to connect all these corners, but I want to take it a little bit more chill. This is more my style of drifting anyways. I like to go a little bit slower with it. Take my time. Keep it nice and smooth instead of super fast and aggressive, you know? As you can see, it's so smooth. It's honestly very easy to drift. Not a challenge at all. I don't know if the score is going to say the same thing when we're done. I have no idea, to be honest. Hopefully it does. Oh, almost lost it right there with the brake. Because when you hit the brake, it causes your car to rotate. You got to be careful not to over brake, especially when you're like mid rotation already. You don't want to over brake. Whoa, almost lost it there. I don't remember what the score is that I need to get. I think it's like 340. There you guys got it. 356 first try. And as you can see, that was very far from a perfect run. It was actually a lot of mistakes in that run. So if you were to optimize it, you can get a much higher score than I did right there, y'all. If there's one thing I want you to take from this video, is this: stop chasing the numbers and start understanding the behavior of the car. Two different cars with two identical tunes can feel completely different. That's why I didn't just post the settings. I wanted to post you guys the entire process that I use to get these tunes that I use. The way that I build cars, they feel natural when I'm in tandems with other players. And I think that's why a lot of other players naturally like my tunes. So if you want to learn a tune the way that I do, just do what we did in this video and your car is going to be feeling amazing. If you want to learn how to actually master this style, make sure to subscribe because we got a lot more coming. If this video helped you learn how to tune or anything like that, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe for more Forza Horizon 6 content just like this, man. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you sticking around to the end of the video, man, and see you in the next one. Happy sliding, y'all. Peace.